All right, good evening. Let's see if we can get this in one take. I am excited to share with you a couple of thoughts that I had. But as I was thinking about what I might share with the worship team this time, I had this thought in the back of my mind that I need to offer something as deep and as thoughtful as Tori does, because she always shares with us things that lead to some great discussions, and I really appreciate that. So thanks, Tori. But then I decided to settle on this topic. So forgive me for not living up to my own expectations. But I have this huge confession to make, and I hope that you guys are okay with this. But I have a strong dislike for this particular thing, and it's a disgust uh, that I share with little else. My family knows this, and my son uses it against me all the time. He likes to come up with new creative ways to torture me. And so here it is. Here is my confession. I hate human feet. I think feet are disgusting. They're these nasty, smelly, dirty, sweaty, awkward looking things that I know they're extremely useful, but to me they're just nasty and repulsive. And I don't like anything related to feet, socks, shoes. I struggle helping little kids tie their shoes. It's just all gross to me. And my son, um, he's learned to do some great toe tricks. He can mesh his toes together to where it looks like people are holding hands, and it's really quite disgusting. He throws his dirty socks at me and finds a lot of pleasure in that. Like even when you see a newborn baby and they have those cute little feet, all I can think of is one day those are going to be big, nasty, grown-up feet. And I know it's heartless and it's cold of me, but I just don't like feet. And I had a roommate in college. He would leave his dirty socks occasionally on my bed um, in the dorms, and it's just nasty. We didn't stay roommates for very long. He was a good friend. We traveled together in the summer times and led worship at camps, but uh, no, we wouldn't be friends today probably had we stayed roommates for that very reason. That was it. I mean, I was pretty messy in general, but the sock things, I mean, yeah, feet, they're just nasty. And so I decided that's what I wanted to talk about with you guys today, right? But it does make a good springboard into some of the ideas that we see regarding feet in the Bible. Um, it's used quite a bit, and it's for a good reason. They were a pretty big part of everyday life. They were the mode of transportation, primary, so feet tended to get dirty, but they were in charge of where you went and what you did. And so a lot of things to reflect on, and references to feet were made. Um, uh, we see in Psalm 119 where it talks about your word is a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my path. They're often referenced in regards to stability and having a sure footing. Um, Proverbs 4:26-27 says, give careful thought to the paths for your feet and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Keep your foot from the evil. We see in the New Testament, feet are part of the armor of God. There, our feet are to be fitted with the gospel of peace. We see beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news, right? In John 13, we see Jesus' foot washing passage, which is kind of where we're going to land and settle today. He says in verse 14 of John chapter 13, now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you will also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. And so as we dig into that just a little bit, I want to talk about that because I think it does reflect the nastiness of feet, which is what I relate most closely to when I think about feet. But I think for us to really understand what Jesus is talking about here, we have to go back and understand the role feet played in regard to needing to be washed. Again, um, we know feet were dirty just from walking around in the dusty roads and the animal droppings and all those things. But that's not really where I want to go with this. I want us to go back to Exodus chapter 3 in the passage of Moses in the burning bush. And this is kind of where I first recall, maybe prior to this, but equating the need for feet to be clean when we enter into the presence of the holy God. And so I'll just read starting in verse 1. It says, "Now Moses was pasturing the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. The angel of Yahweh appeared to him in a blazing fire from the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, yet the bush was not consumed. So Moses said, I must turn aside now and see this marvelous sight, why the bush is not burned up. When Yahweh saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And Moses responded, Here I am. Then he said, Do not come near here. Remove your sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. And so the implication here is that standing in the presence of God required clean feet, clean shoes, and Moses did not have that at that time. And so that first implication was to remove the dirt, or to remove what kept him from being clean or pure. And so we see this continued in the Jewish tradition. If you wanted to enter into God's presence, particularly in the temple, you had to wash your feet. And we see, you can look in Exodus 30, God gives clear instructions that there was to be a hand and foot washing station for the priests as they went in to make sacrifices at the altar of worship. And if they didn't, they would die. Like, it was that important to God to have clean feet as you went into his presence. And it says, interestingly, that this was a perpetual statute for Aaron and his descendants, and Aaron's descendants were the priest lineage that they were the priests for the Jews. And something that I as I look at this passage in John, we see that Jesus came to make feet beautiful again. If you want to get political, make feet beautiful again. He actually came to kind of flip the idea that we could make ourselves clean upside down on its head. And so I want to read, let's go back to verse 5 of chapter 13. It says, After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus replied, You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. No, said Peter, you will never wash my feet. And Jesus answered, Unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Then, Lord, Simon Peter replied, Not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. And then Jesus answered him, Those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you, for he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I've done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that's what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. And so again, we see Jesus washing their feet, preparing them to enter into the presence of God. Although he was the living presence of God, and these men should have presented themselves clean in front of them, he didn't demand that from them. He actually uh, took it upon himself to wash them, to wash their feet. He prepared them as he prepares us to enter into the presence of God. And that's where we need to be with Jesus. We need to have that intimate relationship where we trust him enough to allow him to wash our feet. And then he challenges them to wash one another's feet, to help them be ready to bring their sacrifices to the altar of worship, as he did with the priests in Exodus. And this, I believe, is the challenge for us in this, is how do we prepare to enter? How do we prepare others? How do we wash others' feet? How do we prepare others to enter into the presence of God? So those are my thoughts. Please don't send me pictures of dirty feet or smelly socks. I will not be grateful for that. So anyway, you guys rock, and we will see you when we see you. All right, bye.